We are talking to the National Committee's senior legislative representative and senior Social Security expert, Maria Freese. Good afternoon, Maria.
Hey Walter, how you doing?
Well, we've had better weeks, haven't we?
Yes, we have.
We've had better weeks. We have a serious subject to discuss, and that is the apparent effort to hollow out the Social Security Administration by Trump and Musk and the acting commissioner, Leland Dudek. So, can we start with the latest news, which is that SSA sent around an email to its employees offering them early retirement? Can you explain what that was all about?
Sure. One of the ways that you can encourage employees, there are a lot of different ways that you can encourage employees to be gone. You can make the workplace unacceptable for them. And one of the options is you can try to encourage them to leave by essentially paying them to leave. They tried to do that a little bit with that fork in the road memo that they
Hmm.
sent out. But this
Hmm.
one's coming from the agency itself. It's not something that's coming from OPM or from Doge. This is
Right.
SSA itself offering an early retirement option for people who will take it. And in fact, in some cases, offering them a bounty if they will leave of up to $25,000 if they meet the criteria. So they are so desperate to gut Social Security Administration, they're willing to pay people to leave. And that's what the most recent offer was.
An SSA veteran employee or a veteran employee of SSA told Talking Points memo that this is a way of saying to the employees, well, you could either retire early or we're going to fire you. Is that basically what they're doing?
Sure, that's exactly what it is. They call it voluntary early retirement, but
Hmm.
it's only voluntary to the extent that having someone hold the gun to your head is voluntary.
Yes.
They have made it quite clear that if you don't take this opportunity to leave on your own, not only do they leave the option open of firing you, they also have left the option of reclassifying you into a whole different job and retraining you, whether you're qualified to do that job or not. So if they have too many people that take this offer in places where they need staff, like in the field offices, then what their goal is to just take some of the people who are left, who are doing what they consider to be non-critical functions, and simply moving them into those slots.
And I think we have to look at this together with the news from earlier in the week that acting Commissioner Dudek was seeking to cut the workforce one way or the other by as much as 50%. And you have argued that even a 10% reduction in workforce at this agency could be devastating. Why is that?
Well, you have the agency that was already staffed at a 50-year low. And you have about 10,000 people a day who are reaching age 65 because boomers are still aging and they are still becoming eligible for Social Security benefits. So you have a situation where the staffing levels have been dropping precipitously over the last few years and the workload keeps growing. And that is a combination that does not lend itself to good customer service, whether you're a government agency or whether you're in the private sector. If you have high demand, the last thing you want to do is shrink your staff because you're going to end up with bad customer service. And that's what they seem to be trying to do over at SSA.
And some people would say, oh, this is all just inside Washington baseball, but shrinking the workforce radically could really hurt Social Security beneficiaries, couldn't it?
Oh, absolutely. If you don't have staff, then you can't process a lot of claims. If you don't, one of the other things that we understand that they've already begun doing is closing field offices. So if you are an elderly person or a disabled person and you are trying to claim benefits, chances are very good you're not going to be able to get very far if you try to do it online. You need to go in and actually see somebody in a bricks and mortar office. If you have to drive 2 hours or 3 hours or longer to try to get to your closest Social Security field office, that is a way of discouraging you from applying for the benefits that you have worked for and earned over those years. If you remember, Walter, during the pandemic, when we had lines that went blocks around field offices because people were desperate to get in and talk to an actual person. Well, we're heading in that direction again for the field offices that are going to remain open.
What is the game here, do you think, on the part of Trump and Musk and their sympathizer, who's the acting commissioner right now, Leland Dudek, and the Doge Department? What do you think the end game really is?
Well, the charitable interpretation is they just don't understand what they're doing. They don't know the programs, they don't know the agencies, and they're just clueless. And so they're like a bull in a china shop. They think that by doing this, they can actually make the place more efficient. Personally, I don't believe that. I think this is part of an orchestrated plan to undermine public support in Social Security so they can come in, gut the programs, and then privatize the program. Because if you stop and think about what they're doing by hollowing, Social Security is the country's most popular government program.
Oh,
It
yeah.
hasn't missed a check in 89 years through all kinds of different natural disasters, man-made disasters. Somehow they always manage to get your checks. But if they manage to do what they're doing to this agency so that it starts missing payments, or it starts taking even longer to process claims, or the denial rates start skyrocketing, public support gets undermined. It was called the third rail of American politics for a reason. That's why it's been so hard for the conservatives to hate the program, to undermine it, and to gut it, is because it is extremely popular with the general public. Well, you make the public start wondering about it. Is it really a good agency? Is it really a good program? Is it riddled with fraud? Are there 150-year-olds collecting benefits? After a while, you have them wondering whether it's worth it to continue the program or whether they should just put their money into an IRA or give it some other way to Wall Street. So my opinion is that they are trying to weaken public support for Social Security generally by hobbling the agency so that it can't do its job correctly, so that ultimately they can come in and just privatize the whole thing and manage to convince the people that they're better off with Wall Street than they are with this waste-riddled and fraud-riddled agency.
And it sort of betrays Trump's promise not to touch Social Security. His and Musk's fingerprints are all over it now. It seems like a backdoor way of cutting Social Security. And also, it strikes me that Musk and his minions are treating this agency like it's a tech company that they've just taken over. And of course, you could look at what he's done at Twitter and wonder whether his record is really stellar in that regard. But this is not a tech company, is it?
No. Well, and there are a couple of points that I would make with that. The first one is that you're right. It's not the kind of program where you can just cut out all the staff. And then if it turns out that you've overdone it, well, maybe you can backfill in and you can end up hiring a few extra people or whatever. Social Security caseworkers take years to train. And that's because the most challenging part of the program in terms of the benefits is the disability side of the program. The retirement side is actually not that complicated to determine if you're eligible or not and what your amount of your benefit is supposed to be. There are some people that end up with complicated situations, but for the most part, it's not that hard to train somebody to do the retirement side.
Or their circumstances change.
Yes, but the
retiree
disability side,
circumstances.
the disability side is extremely complicated if you're trying to get it right. And that's where a lot of the training comes in to try to figure out, is this person in front of me, has he really earned this? Does he qualify for this disability benefit that he has earned or not? And that takes technical skill. It takes time. It isn't something that you can just willy-nilly hire somebody or train somebody to do. Now, the challenge, that the other flip side to the coin of that is, that's only if you really are trying to have the staff do their job right, do the job that they're supposed to do. If your ultimate goal is to say no, is to just maximize the number of people that are disallowed benefits, not that hard to train somebody to say no. Any two-year can say no, and in fact, they frequently do. So if your goal is to disallow as many people getting their earned benefits as humanly possible, I can't think of a better way to accomplish that than putting untrained, unqualified people in charge of making those decisions. And I'd add two different points to that as well. Number one, despite the fact that President Trump has for years claimed that he would not touch Social Security,
Right,
every budget he submitted in the first term had disability cuts in it because he
right,
clearly does not see the disability part of the program as part of the social insurance compact. That's
right.
issue number one. And issue number two is we had heard a lot of complaints from administrative law judges and others that there was a lot of pressure that was being put on them internally to turn down people who were applying for benefits. They didn't actually call them quotas, but they were pretty close to quotas. If you know that you've got somebody watching over your shoulder, and if you approve too many beneficiaries who are applying, it could end up costing you your job. That's kind of like having a quota, even if you don't have a number that you're supposed to reach. And we are hearing of those kinds of things starting already. So if you have untrained people, you bring them in, you basically say anybody who comes in and applies for benefits, the first reaction you're going to have is say no. And then maybe
Right.
if they persuade you that maybe they should be qualified, maybe you might change your mind. But the default is always no. Doesn't take a whole lot of training to do that. And
It's a
so that's
yeah,
why I said the charitable response is they don't know what they're doing. The more realistic response is they know exactly what they're doing. And
and that
this is
they're
part of
trying to.
yes, this is part of a concerted effort to destroy the program, starting with the disability side. Because once the disability side is gone, it's not that hard to move to the others. And then you convince everybody, oh, this is a horrible agency. It's a horrible program. You should put your money into private accounts. You'll make a
Well,
lot more if
let's
you do.
yeah, we're running out of time, but thank you. That was very compelling. And so let's keep fighting back in any way we can. Let's support the folks, the unions who are representing the workers, the beneficiaries. Good to see that there's action in the federal courts to try to stop some of this. And let's hope that we can prevent them from achieving that goal of dismantling Social Security. Maria Freese, our senior legislative representative and senior Social Security expert, thank you so much.
Thank you, Walter.